Welcome to part 3, the final part for the 200mm focal length for the SR Lounge Canon Lens Wars series. Now, since we had a total of 7 lenses in the 200mm grouping, in the first part we compared just the 200mm primes. In part 2, we showed you the 5 different zoom and telephoto lenses that covered the 200mm focal length as well. And in this video, we have our favorite telephoto, which we're going to be comparing against our primes to come up with the overall conclusion. For those that are new to the SR Lounge Canon Lens Wars series, be sure to check out the teaser video on srlounge.com, where we basically introduce the entire series. We talk about our testing methodology and so forth, and also check out all the other videos and articles on each focal length. This is the 200mm focal length conclusion, and we have a total of 7 lenses that were tested in this grouping. In the last 2 videos, we reviewed the 200mm primes, and then we also went into part 2. We talked about the 200mm zoom and telephoto lenses. And in terms of visual performance and image quality, for the telephoto lenses, our favorite lens was the 70-200 2.8L IS Mark II, and basically the non-IS version of that, which we're going to be comparing to our 200mm primes. Let's go ahead and start from the top with their aesthetic quality and sharpness at their respective WOAs, or wide open apertures. Now, once again, this is a visual test of differences and not a technical test. So we're trying to distinguish differences in appearance while simply viewing the images at full screen on a 27-inch 3K resolution display. Now, visually, all 3 of these lenses were quite different, and of course there was a bit of change in the light in the scene, basically from when the shots were taken. So let's try to ignore that fact. But we can see that the 200 f2 at its WA of f2 really crushes the background into this uber soft and smooth bokeh milkshake. I'm kind of getting hungry. Is it weird that I'm getting hungry? I don't know. But compared to the other 2 lenses, it's very easy to notice. It also has a significant amount of vignetting as well to the look, which was really kind of, in my opinion, for this scene, it really adds to the look. But moving to the 200 f2.8, we see a bit less vignetting and also quite a bit less bokeh as well at its WA of f2.8. Finally, we have the 7200 f2.8L IS Mark II, which has the least amount of vignetting, but also has a bit less bokeh even than the 200 f2.8 and far less than the 200 f2. But visually, between the 7200 f2.8 and the 200mm f2.8, the difference in bokeh is really only noticeable when comparing these images side by side. Both lenses have an awesome look in and of themselves. And of the 3 lenses at their WOAs, once again, the 200mm f2 is the sharpest, which is very clear to see. And especially when we zoom over our model, we compare that kind of area over the model and the dress, and we see the images side by side, you can see the additional sharpness in the 200 f2 over the other lenses. Stepping up to their WC of f2.8, much of the visual differences in the bokeh equalizes quite a bit, but it's still pretty easy to distinguish the 200 f2 because the bokeh is a bit stronger, it's a bit smoother, and overall the contrast and color just renders a bit more accurately and better as well on this lens. The aesthetic differences in bokeh, though, are mostly equalized at around f4 and beyond. From there, it simply comes down to small differences in, say, color and contrast and overall sharpness, for which, again, the 200 f2 still stays ahead of the other 2 lenses, which at much more the price it should. But the 7200 f2.8L Mark II stays in a close second, and the 200 f2.8 in third. So as an overall conclusion, the 200 f2.8 really doesn't offer anything that's unique enough in terms of its overall performance or image aesthetics, from its bokeh to the overall color and contrast and so forth, to really merit recommending it, aside from it just being cheaper, around $800 instead of the 7200's $2,500. But the 7200 f2.8L Mark II, this is truly a must-have lens, and if you plan on having it in your toolkit, or if you already have it in your toolkit, then really it's going to do everything the 200 f2.8 is going to do, and it's going to do much more as well. Over here to our gentle giant, the 200mm f2, it has an amazing look. And aesthetically, I would say that it's one of my favorite lenses of all time, really. But its size and limited focal range flexibility, and primarily its overall cost at around $6,000, it makes it a specialty lens that isn't going to be useful enough for the majority of you. If you want bokeh, you want low light performance, then you're going to look to, say, a 50mm 1.2 or the 85 1.2. You want the telephoto flexibility, then the 7200 f2.8 is really going to be your best bet. And it only falls short 1 stop in low light performance. It's a lot, but still 1 stop most people can do away with. The 200 f2 is an amazing lens, but it's designed for those that absolutely need the additional 1 stop of low light performance, the additional bokeh, and that compression at the 200mm focal length. That additional stop of light, that additional slight look, and that change in appearance is going to cost you a $3,500 difference over the 7200, which for most of you is just not going to be enough to justify or to merit the cost. So of the 200mm focal range, the best bang for your buck is still going to be the 7200 f2.8L IS Mark II. It has a beautiful look and aesthetic. It has amazing quality, especially when shot wide open. Great overall contrast, great color, wonderful low light performance, and a flexibility in its focal length that makes it a very effective telephoto lens. Again, if you need to save money, go with the non-IS version where you can get most of that image performance without image stabilization for about $1,000 cheaper. I hope you all enjoyed this conclusion to the 200mm focal length in the SLR Lounge Canon Lens Wars series. Now be sure to check out the actual article on slrlounge.com by clicking the link in the description below the video, where you can see more example images, more information on each lens, as well as links on where you can purchase. My name is Pye, and I'll see you all in the next video.